You're right. We started the conversation on Tuesday with a really, really important town hall. It was the first set of conversations I hope to have with residents as we're learning and hearing news about the province's thoughts on this. And we're hearing lots of questions and concerns. And I think it's really important to recognize that as these concerns are emerging, there isn't a defined plan and there isn't a proposal yet. And so I have questions, as does the community, about what the implications of this might be.
What is your official position on the expansion of the airport?
I don't have an official position because there wasn't a proposed plan in front of us to react to. And so at the moment, my work and my job as the Member of Parliament is to hear from our community and hear what their concerns are and make sure if a plan and when a plan comes forward, that we're actually centering their concerns, and their experiences at the front.
We spoke to Chris Glover earlier this week, MPP at Queen's Park, and he's very concerned about the exclusion of the city of Toronto. And to your point, the lack of information. The people are operating on bits and pieces. There was an interview with the CEO of the Toronto Port Authority this week in the Globe and Mail that gave some indication that a runway would be extended westward, and then conflicting information about how long that runway is actually going to be. But Chris Glover said it is really going to be the decision of the federal government in the end, because with the province taking one of the seats at the table, you have the Port Authority and the federal government and the province. And people are really looking to their Liberal MPs to say, listen to us, make sure that we have a voice, because we're being edged out of this conversation.
Yeah, I think you're right that our role is listening and making sure that residents have a seat at the table. Right now it is still speculation. We haven't seen I haven't seen a proposal, and I do have a lot of questions about the path forward. But it's right now the things I've heard are that. The transport minister has said they're only going to do one piece of this. And so right now, let's get the plans in front of us so we can have a conversation about those pain points. I've heard from residents how much they love and enjoy the waterfront. There are residents who kayak down there, that spend their time doing recreation activities. We've just invested in Harbourfront Centre alongside some of the other partners at the table from the government level. So we know that the waterfront is an absolute gem for the city.
I think people are very concerned because we are in an environment where we are at odds with our trading partners in the United States, and that a huge emphasis and money is focused on economic development and bringing in more money into the city. And so, the provincial government is using this as an argument to bring more business into the city. I spoke to someone who represents the business community this morning. He says, we all think it's a great idea. How do you balance that argument for economic growth with maintaining what many see as the jewel of the city?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we have done well in the last couple of decades is work with all three levels of government at the table. The province and the city are in a conversation about what that looks like in their relationship on this particular piece of this. But I think the city continues to have a really important role in informing how we move forward. And I encourage the city to continue to work with us on this. It's really critical that we maintain that balance. There is so much along that waterfront. We have invested in making sure that the Portlands can be opened up for a whole new chapter for Toronto with new housing and new opportunities. I spent last Sunday with my kids down at Badasagay Park. It's extraordinary. And that's actually when we're doing government well, is when all three levels of government get on the same page and work together.
I think the concern for many people is that they see the province as sort of the bull in the china shop, if I can use that analogy. And there's a lot of hurt feelings about Ontario Place and the redevelopment there, what that looks like, that the Premier of the province stood up and said, the last time I checked, it said Ontario Place, therefore. And I think what the City of Toronto is trying to say back to the province and to the federal government is, the last time we checked, it said Toronto Islands. So how do we balance that relationship? Because I'm not sure that this has gotten off to the best start.
Yeah, I think that, we heard from residents that they're concerned that this is Ontario Place 2.0. But on the airport itself and how we manage and operate the airport, the federal government's going to be at the table and is at the table. Our role as the federal government is to make sure our aviation system works well, is safe, is a trusted piece of infrastructure, and that's really, really critical. And we can't actually operate in the environment if we don't have community support and buy-in and trust. And so for me, it's really important that we have a good process and a good conversation and understand, what this looks like. And right now, I've got questions as well.
What is the message you're going to take back to Ottawa? And I assume you're going to have a conversation with the Federal Transport Minister, Steve McKinnon, about this. What is that conversation going to look like?
I think my priority is to continue to do the work of listening to our residents. And we're hearing a whole range of things. I do have community members who have said, we are for a growth plan for the airport. And I also have community members that said, please stop. Let's slow down and think about what we want here. Mm-hmm. I represent the 120,000 people who live along the downtown. And, it's a whole host of views and different opinions. And our job is to kind of synthesize those and bring them forward.
Have you had a conversation with the Mayor of Toronto about this?
I have not.
Are you going to?
I would love to, actually. I think that would be a really smart idea, and I think she's leaning into the tools that she has to fight for the city, and I think it's really important that we all stay at the table and stay working in partnership.
What about the province? Is there any conversations happening between you and the province about this issue?
Not directly. Right. I mean, I know our levels of government are speaking, but I'm not speaking directly to the province.
Mm-hmm. Would you like to?
If the Minister of Transportation was listening, I would love him to really understand how extraordinary the community around Little Norway Park is and how amazing that part of the city is. It is a complete community. When I think about all the things that are there, we've done a phenomenal job of affordable housing, cooperative housing, the Corlec building that's going to be open in a couple of months. Oh, actually, we're coming up to May. It's going to be opening very soon.
Right?
And an extraordinary community center, waterfront neighborhood center. So these are real community assets. There's a school there. There's a childcare there, and along the whole of the waterfront, we want to make sure that it's working well and serving Torontonians. First and foremost, it is our city. We got to make sure that it's working well.
What would the loss of Little Norway Park mean to you and your constituents?
I don't want to talk about the loss of Norway Park because we aren't there yet and we haven't seen what the proposed plan is. But I do want to make sure that our residents know that they should be letting our levels of government know about how valuable and important it is. It's a park that I used to take my kids to in the summertime. It's a great green space, and living downtown, living in these vertical communities, it's really important for Torontonians to have access to an amazing backyard. There's so much along the waterfront, including the Bentway, including Harbourfront Centre. We welcome so many visitors. It's truly what I think of as Toronto magic.
What do you see as your next steps when it comes to this issue?
Well, we're going to continue having conversations with the community. I'm trying to reach out to as many residents as possible to get the pulse and hear where people's concerns are and hear where they think there might be opportunities. So open conversation, and we want to hear from residents in a way that's productive and constructive. And we want to make sure that there are good facts on the table. Right now, we're all feeling a bit anxious and nervous because we don't know. And so I want to be clear that we want to get to a good fact base so we can have the grown-up conversation that we need about the 21st century.